because the pictures that I'm going to have on the screen are there. So I like to have the plants nearby us in some way as I talk about them. And I do have a couple near me, so I can feel their essence with me as well. So that's why I'm going to have some words up on the screen. If any of you want the notes that are up on the screen, I will coordinate with Faye to get those to you. But yeah, I just wanted to have something for those who like to see notes and for those who like to see pictures. I wanted to have both of those rather than just seeing my head on the screen talking. So thank you for inviting me to this. I'm sure you're having a lovely time with Faye. Faye and I met through the virtual world. We've never met in person, but it's a great connection that we have here in the virtual business space. And what else would I like to tell you? I just want to presence and name that I'm on the lands of some of the Native American Indians here. This is a way to honor the fact that I am a European American. I am an immigrant here in this land. I am from Europe, every portion of Europe. That's what my DNA says. So someday I hope to get over there and look at all my Norwegian and Scottish and English and French and Italy and even down into Africa, connected down there. So I am on the lands of traditionally known the treaty and there's lots of different kinds of maps over here to show what kind of Indians lived here, Native American Indians. So I'm definitely on the Lakota lands, the Menominee, and currently reside around Ho-Chunk and Anishinaabe. So I just want to presence that. So today I'm going to show you some of the herbs that I think would be really helpful in any practice, whether you're in Reiki, massage, gosh, all the energy fields and body work practitioners, gosh, even medical doctors, these would be great too with. So that's what I'm focusing on, is really simple and powerful ways to work with the herbs. I don't know if Faye's told you some about me as well. So if you want to know more about my background as an herbalist and how I learned, I certainly will do that if anybody has questions of that. But since we only have a short amount of time, I'm not going to go too much into my background, but I certainly can entertain that question in the Q&A session as well. So this calming tea recipe, Faye, did you all make this at all? You can just shake your head or I can see you.
We're going to do it tomorrow, actually. We didn't get around to it today, but we are going to do it.
Great. Okay, so this tea recipe is, I would say, probably one of the easiest to make because these type of herbs are readily available. I mean, I'm only speaking here, but I think all these grow really well in the European area as well, and where you all are at too. Lemon balm, chamomile, rose petals, lavenders, and oat tops maybe is a little bit harder to find sometimes. I usually have to order those. But this tea recipe, you can make a little bit of it or a lot of it. And most people who try this just love it. And I actually grew some of these herbs a few years ago at an apple orchard. They invited me to come there, and I had this, only had a little bit, but to sell. But what we did have to sell went right off the shelves. Everybody just loves this. People who don't really even drink herbal tea will like this. It's very light flavored. It's very relaxing. That lemon balm, the chamomile, which I'll talk a little bit more about, those are really geared for relaxation and not the kind of like drowsy relaxation, just like a sense of overall calm. When anybody sips these types of herbs, you can just kind of see them relax. And oat tops are the same as we eat in like oatmeal. And it's part of the plant that hasn't come fully ripened. And the constituents in that are very calming to the nerves. It's almost like they coat the nerves. And oat tops are even great for people who have nerve issues, who are going through drug withdrawal. And so it really helps to like coat the nervous system. And rose petals are just so beautiful, and most people like them to taste them. I will say you could put a little bit more of the rose petals in, or even the lavender flowers for color. I really like to add more for color. I know that sometimes rose petals can get too florally, or lavender for some people as well. But in general, this tea blend is a big hit, and it looks pretty much like you see here on the screen. That's pretty much what that herbal tea looks like. So if you could make some of this and keep it on hand when you're with, clients or anybody you're with, family or friends who may be going through some stressful times, or for people who maybe see a stressful time coming up with like a move or something like that, if you have some of this and you can make them a tea at your practice and have it on hand for them to taste, it just kind of sets that first mood of just, you just kind of relax, and that tension kind of fades for a little bit. Also, it's just really pretty. So people tend to see it and they just think, oh, that looks like something really lovely. And keeping it in a jar or something that they can see through also just brings that beauty. I think is something that can really actually aid in calm and relaxation. The beauty part of it, I like to make herbal teas that are medicinal, tasty, and beautiful, all three of those, because it's just part of the whole magic and experience of herbal teas. All right, so what else can I tell you about this? And as with all herbal teas, you can try different levels of it, the amount that you add to the water and the steeping time that you add. So you can get a stronger flavor or a lighter flavor. And also you can try steeping this in cold water for a lighter flavor. So if you have somebody who's like, I don't want to try this, I don't like herbal tea, maybe suggest to them to try it with cold water, hot water, and try different steeping times, adding honey. Really give them the opportunity to explore and experiment and have fun with the process.
So, Erin, how much of this would you put in if you were making 1 cup of tea? What would you say of dried? Because this is all dried herbs, right? What would you say?
Right. So for somebody who maybe is new to herbal tea or doesn't like a strong flavor, I'd say 1 teaspoon to 1 cup of water. And you could also go as far up as 1 tablespoon. It kind of just depends on the palate of the person. And of course, the more you put in, the more, beneficial effects you get from those herbs. And for cold water, I would actually do a tablespoon to a cup or 8 ounces of water, and just steep it for maybe 15 minutes or so and try the flavor. Usually with cold water, it's such a lighter flavor. So you can add a little bit more, if that makes sense. Yeah, got a thumbs up. Okay, great. So yeah, this is really, I never heard anybody complain about this tea, even people who I know are a little picky with their flavors. So go forth with that one. That's fun. And you can always add stuff to it as well as you start to experiment with herbal teas. Okay, so I want to go into some of the specific herbs that you can use. Besides just herbal tea, we'll talk about some of the other things. And chamomile is, I'm going to show you 2 kinds of chamomile. This chamomile is what typically, most people know as chamomile. And this one is typically called German chamomile. That's one of the common names. Use the Latin name or the scientific name is up there too, if you're into those types of words. But the German chamomile is what we find in most herbal teas. I'll show you a picture or 2 of what is called Roman chamomile. And Roman chamomile is great as an essential oil, and it's usually added to massage oils to help ease pain. and it has a very beautiful scent. This chamomile, the German chamomile you see here on the screen, also has a good scent, but Roman chamomile is much stronger and sweeter, and a lot of times people say like an apple scent, which is sort of correct. So this one, putting this into practice for anybody is really helpful, because again, it's easy to find in stores. It's easy to find in tea bag form already made. It's easy to grow. So if you're working with somebody who has like anxiety, they have nervousness, they're irritable, especially irritable. This is really good for irritability, even insomnia. And a lot of the herbs I'm going to talk about are for these types of things. But chamomile is really well noted for its irritability, for like whiny kids, for like teething children, and for the same kind of behavior that you're seeing in adults. They're just kind of whiny. They can't seem to get out of the stuckness of like, my life kind of sucks kind of feeling. This chamomile is just so gentle that it just, just kind of stops that. For a moment, you can kind of like, you stop and you taste it, you smell it, you look at it. It just has that overall lightness to it. Even the leaves are kind of fern-like. So having people try the tea, of course, is great. Having people find chamomile to be around and smell and experience is great. So if you ever want to grow this in a pot, in a container, and have it near your office or wherever you're doing your work, your healing work, this might be a fun one to have near if you're just bringing people in and you're welcoming them and they seem kind of on edge. If you could even stand next to this and have your conversation by it, eyes will be drawn to it. And you could even invite them to smell it and touch it, and ask them, what do you think about this particular herb? And see what their reaction is. See if you can get them to kind of focus on this thing. And if people want to go so far as they love this plant, they had a really great experience with it, again, it's one that you could maybe recommend, or what's the word I'm looking for? You could really suggest to them, why don't you try growing this and having it by you? And it's really easy to pop off those little flowers, put them in a bowl on your countertop, and they dry really quickly. This is just a really easy, friendly, introductory herb for anybody. Now, I just want to say that in a lot of the herbal books that I have, it will say this one, and it has this one warning. And it'll say, oh, people who are allergic to ragweed might be allergic to this one because they're in the same plant family. That's kind of an overcautiousness, in my opinion, because there are so many plants in the aster family, so many things that we eat, sunflowers, everything. So ragweed is a wind-borne pollen. It blows everywhere. It doesn't have showy flowers because it wants to create this pollen that flows all over the place. And chamomile is not necessarily like that. It's not creating as much pollen like ragweed is. So if you start reading things and this allergy like warning keeps coming up, I'll just say that there are very few people that I've met that say this causes irritation. And the only kind of irritation I've ever heard is like an itchy, scratchy throat, kind of like an irritation in the throat. But that's it, and it goes away quickly. So here in America, a lot of our books, I don't know about yours, but a lot of our books have these outrageous, like, oh my gosh, be careful with this herb. And I really, in my experience with talking with people, I haven't seen the need for that kind of caution. So here I'm just going to show you some lovely pictures of this. Do you have this and have you been able to show them this chamomile in your garden?
Not this year. I don't think I've got it growing in my garden this year. It normally self-seeds for me. But at the moment we've got this terrible, it's a real drought at the moment here. So something, it's there's lots of plants are under stress, and there's a lot of stuff that would be there normally that isn't. But I think we're all, are you all familiar with chamomile? Probably, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So I've let the team down this year on that.
That's really interesting because I grow it every year too, and I do not have it this year. So it's I'm part of a community shared garden where we work as a community, and we have it in that garden, but not in my personal home garden. So yeah, I've grown this for many, many years, and I don't have it this year.
Yeah, me too. It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So anyways, you can see the leaves here. They're just so beautiful. What other suggestions? Oh, and with this is a great one to put in a bath water as well. So even that tea that I showed you, that tea blend I showed you previously, that can be put into a bath water as well in like a sachet, like a muslin cloth sachet, and put it in a bath water, and the health, and soak in that, and that the health benefits and the smells and the volatile oils can be released that way too. Oh yes, this one is known as like a guardian. It's been associated with sun gods in many cultures, and I guess it is one of the Woden's sacred herbs. Yeah. So it does have a long history of like mythology, and it's just been used for thousands and thousands of years. So a really great ally to have. Let's see, a few other things before we move on to some other herbs. And this is chamomile, like before the petals come out. So you're seeing it at a really early stage. It can stimulate digestive juices, so that's why it's known to like help with tummy issues, because it can help stimulate digestive juices, get things broken down. And let's see what other things. Oh yeah, it's also been associated to help with car sickness or motion sickness. The musculoskeletal issues really, yes, helping the body to relax and release that tension. But that Roman chamomile is also really helpful for that too. Let's see, German chamomile. Yep, popular for the tea. And this is Roman chamomile. Like I said, a stronger fragrance than German chamomile. It's known by two different Latin or scientific names. You can see there on the screen. So they sometimes change those names. And you can see here on the screen, it grows differently. It like it's a little bit more like robust in terms of the leaves seem less ferny. They're just like a little bit more stout, and it travels on the ground. So again, it could be put in a container and grown that way. And like I said, those blossoms are super fragrant, and they're a little bit bigger than the German chamomile. So a great one to sit by and just smell it. I've never used it for tea. It doesn't usually blossom as prolifically as the other one, so you don't get as many blossoms, and it doesn't have the same. It's more used for its essential oil. Oh yes, marshmallow. I did go get a little leaf of marshmallow. I do have some growing in the garden, and you can see right away, I just want to caress this leaf. It's soft. The plant can get very tall. Some of the ones in the other garden I help with are about 4 feet tall, which is almost as tall as I am. I'm like 5 feet 3 inches. And we literally stand there with the whole plant and just like pet it. And it's super, super soft. And this one is really good for people who need soothing. It's really soothing to the gastrointestinal system, the throat, the stomach, the intestinal linings. So if somebody is like really hot in those regions of their body, if they're having heartburn, if they're having a lot of throat issues and coughing and been through a rough sickness, marshmallow can help soothe those. Think of like a lotion for the inside of the body. It helps to soften. It even helps to create a protective layer inside the stomach. And it can actually, if there's bacteria, certain kinds of bacteria in the stomach, it can help actually like create a layer that's slippery, kind of like, and it doesn't let them adhere to the lining. So yeah, marshmallow is the ingredient to what we call marshmallows, those like little treats that people eat. Of course, they don't use the marshmallow root as much for that, but it has a mucilaginous quality to it. So if you ever make a hot tea from the marshmallow root, it can kind of have a slimy feel to it, which a lot of people don't necessarily like. But a cold infusion will actually not do that. So if you put some marshmallow root in a container, and then you add some room temperature water and let that steep for a few hours, you can actually get a beneficial effect, but not the slimy quality to it. So the root is used most often, and it's a beautiful white creamy root, and it tastes good. It has a very light flavor, almost a little sweetness to it, and cooling, like I said, to the digestive system, but it's also found in body care products too to help soothe the skin. The leaves can be used in teas as well, and the flowers too. So the whole plant can be used, but the root has most of the plant constituents that we typically use. So yes, if anybody is, like I said, complaining or recovering from internal heat and irritation, like that kind of irritation where they feel kind of raw, marshmallow is really great for that. And if you can ever try to be next to this plant, it just has that softness to it, almost like a lullaby song, you know, it just kind of soothes you. The plant energy is really, really beautiful. So here's marshmallow growing together in a bunch. There are many kinds of plants that are called mallow or malva, marshmallow, anytime you hear that word, it may be in this family, and there's many plants in this family that can be used in as well, that can be used just like I said. There's one that's called Zebrenia that grows as kind of more of an ornamental, same kind of thing in the same family. If you dry these flowers, they kind of shrivel up and they're really small. It's like, oh my goodness, I just harvested all these little flowers and I just have a tiny bit. But again, they add that beauty to herbal teas. And if people just want to collect part of this plant to have that soothing energy around them, you can certainly do that with the flowers. And you can see the softness of those leaves even right here on the screen, because they have little hairs on them, but nothing that irritates the throat like some other plants' hairs can do. This one's just really soft, and it has a silvery look about it. So any questions on this one or comments? Let's see. Yep, there's the root.
Yeah, I've got some. We'll do a cool infusion tomorrow, so you can taste that, everyone. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you definitely have, when you harvest the root, it takes the plant out. It will, hopefully you have enough of a supply if you're harvesting that you can keep the plant going. But this is there is an herbal tea here by Traditional Medicinals that's called Throat Coat. And I don't know if you have access to that, but maybe Faye or somebody, you all know a tea that's similar, that's like a throat coat, something for the throat that you can keep at your practice or around the area that where you're helping people, so that if they do complain of like a sore throat or heartburn, if you're able to like say, well, try, you know, here's a tea that you can try. It's really nice to just have like some samples that people can take away with them, because I don't know about you, but when I'm in sickness or distress or stressed, or after just having a massage, like the idea to go find a tea, like, oh, we'll find something with marshmallow root in it, it can be overwhelming and draining. And if we can just have these like little, care packages, or just one or two tea bags just ready for them, or sachets ready for them, it can really help to start their journey into using these herbs more frequently. So any exposure that we can provide people with these herbs, whether it's they're growing next to them in a pot, or we have a tea made for them, or a tea bag, or a bath sachet, or an herbal oil sample or something, it's just kind of another part of their herbal medicine bundle that they can add to it, even if they don't know that's what's happening. Um, Exposure over and over to these herbs makes them seem normal and accessible. So I think that can be something that you can consider having if you're a practitioner.
Yeah, totally. That really resonates, I think, with all of us, doesn't it? This needing to, share this with everyone, with the people we come into contact with. And I love that. I love that. I like your idea, a care package, this like gentle introduction, making it easy for people, isn't it? And making it accessible. That's really, yeah, it resonates. Thanks.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a lot of something. Even if you have the package of the tea box there and be like, this is what you're looking for in the store, that can be very, very helpful as well. So, or even like a little list, if you can just have like a little list that, sometimes in our practices, we don't always have the monetary funds to keep all these like little samples for people, but even just like a little list in your area of like, these are some of the herbs I mentioned, and you can go to these particular stores and find them. I mean, that is just a blessing for some people to have with them. So yes, lavender. I can just hear the relaxation in all of your voices just saying that. So yes, many kinds of lavender. And lavender is known for so many things. I think it's just one of those like first aid kind of things to have around, because it can help with so many things. It's like many of the herbs, there's always like an antibacterial or antimicrobial effect to them. So, getting rid of some of those germs that we don't need, while also not necessarily getting rid of the good germs, the probiotics that we do need. Just real quickly, herbs have evolved for so long that they've learned how not to get resistant to some of these bacterias and other harmful things that try to take over their bodies, the insects, the diseases that are trying to get into them. They've evolved with each other for so long that they typically don't get resistant to each other through a wide variety of chemical mechanisms. So that's why herbs are like such a powerful hope for resistance to antibiotics, right? We're seeing so much resistance to antibiotics, like strep throat and stuff is getting resistant to it. Our antibiotics aren't working. But a lot of these herbs, if we added them to the pharmaceuticals, they can actually keep the antibiotic in the cell longer, and not the bacteria sometimes has learned to spit out the antibiotic from the cell. But herbs have mechanisms that say, no, you can't spit us out. We're staying in. Too bad. We're getting rid of you. So yeah, that's the really cool thing about herbs. So definitely aromatic. Some of these herbs, it's like the aroma of them actually gets into our nose and up into the blood-brain barrier and can pass it and actually do wonderful therapeutic things without having to ingest them in our mouths, right? Everybody's always trying to like get them in the body through the mouth. But if you can let them soak through the skin in a bath, if you can let the aroma get into the body, those are beneficial things. The spritzers are such a nice non-invasive things for people who may be like, what are you doing with these herbs? Or something that you can use that you don't really have to talk much about. You know, you're just spritzing some herbal water into the atmosphere. Be really refreshing. So yes, and you can see here on the screen all the other things that they're known for, the antispasmodics. That's why it's really nice to have them in herbal tea formulas, or in massage therapy, herbal oils, because they also have that way to relax the smooth muscle tissues to help that spasmodic quality to just kind of calm itself. It's known as an antidepressant, again, through like the blood-brain barrier of just smelling them and that letting the aroma get in. And also known for neuroprotective, to help protect the nerves in our brains, to help to keep them from being degenerated over time through other things that we're exposed to. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So here are some of the things people may say that may clue you into maybe lavender is good. So lots of things. And, you know, you see things like pain and nervous depression, and you think, wow, those are like really hardcore physical ailments. How can this little tiny plant help to cure it? And we're not necessarily looking to cure the problem. We're like adding a layer onto the healing modalities, all the layers to help a person out. So I know lots of people will say, why should I use this? It's not going to like fix me right now. And no, it's part of the long-term help. And we also don't have to use these herbs in moments of crisis, right? We can add them to whatever we're doing just to help create more and more layers of relaxation and help support our bodies. Because our bodies may be going through things such as trying to fight off infections that we don't even know about. And when we just add these layers on through massage and through, I'm trying to think, not aromatherapy, I'm thinking of another modality of the acupuncture, you know, all these things that we can add the layers on to help with the overall treatment plan and just quality of life. So you see the alopecia on here and you think, how can lavender help with alopecia? You know, the pulling out of hair or the loss of hair. And again, it's that whole holistic idea of let's get this body to be in a calm space and get the inflammation. A lot of these herbs help with inflammation. So we're helping the mind calm, we're helping the internal body relax and not attack itself, and have all those overall things. Now, one of the things that I want to also present is that not everybody loves lavender. Most people do, but I have met somebody that says lavender makes me more, gives me like energy. It makes me actually feel kind of on edge. So that's why it's always good to kind of check in with the people you're working with. Like, you know, what about the smell? And if somebody's been through some sort of trauma and those scents are associated with that trauma, we don't want to re-trigger it as well. And my example I usually use is, what if you were in a car accident, a really bad car accident, and you had a bunch of roses in the back and you're like trapped in your car and it took hours for them to get you out? You may not associate a rose with a good experience long term. So, you know, we always say lavender is calming and chamomile is calming, but we also need to check in with people to make sure that it's not something they associate with a trauma or a trigger point too. Yeah, let's see what else. Oh, here's a lovely recipe for emotional upset and nervous depression. So it says equal parts. So you can do this by weight, or you can do it just by like a measuring cup, but equal parts of lavender, lemon balm, just like those are both in that first recipe I showed you. Skullcap, which is another plant we haven't talked much about, chamomile, and then licorice. Licorice is added to a lot of things in small amounts for a sweetness. It adds like a little sweetness. And the ginger root. 1 ounce, steep 1 ounce in a pint of boiling water covered for 20 minutes and take 1 cup 2 to 3 times a day. Usually that's what we consider like a medicinal type dosage is up to 3 cups a day of an herbal tea. 1 cup is fun. It's like what we call a beverage tea. And 1 cup can certainly relax and calm and put people at ease as well. But more up to 3 cups is usually what we consider more of like a stronger a dose to really help people out a little bit more. Yeah, it's just some ideas of how to use lavender, but these are wonderful ideas of how to use any types of herbs. There's one word on here, fumigation. So that means burning dried plant material. That's another lovely way to get the aroma out. And smoke seems to really be a nice atmosphere that we create around ourselves, right? Foot soaks are really helpful for people. Not only do they get the aromatic effect of the herb to get into their body, but it gives them a minute to sit down and relax. You can't move anywhere, right, when you have your feet in the water. And water is just a lovely healing quality in itself. So let's see, strewing herbs. I don't know, this is kind of an old modality application that people used to use, but it's an interesting one that I wonder if we start again. But strewing herbs, it means to put them on the floor, and as you walk upon them, it will release the herbs. So if anybody's ever working outside, I've seen people do healing work outside, Reiki and massage, and actually do it outside. Consider putting fresh or dried herbs down around under your feet, so that when you walk on them, you can actually that whole atmosphere and aromatics comes up through it. All right. Let's see. This is some more. I'm gonna skip through this. Oh, the magic of lavender. Yeah, it's a very air element, very fairy element. It's even called little leaf, fairy leaf. Yeah, it's very much associated with fae. Happiness attracts good energy and dispels stuck energy and helps to revive. All right. Before any questions right now on lavender?
I was going to ask a question actually, just because we've been doing a bit of spritzing today. For lavender, what if you were going to do lavender as a spritz? What would you do? Would you use essential oil, hydrosol, infusion, flower essence? What would you do?
Well, essential oil is going to be stronger, of course. I would just say whatever you have your access to, all of those would be a great way to help, with relaxation. Flower essence, typically you can't usually smell anything when you use it as a spritzer, but you could add flower essence and essential oil together so you can get the scent, but also have that energetic component to it. So, essential oils sustainably, if we think of sustainability, maybe you've touched on this, it takes a lot of herbs to make an essential oil. So if we can find ways to just use an herbal tea and spritz it and have the same effect, that's environmentally a little bit more sustainable and usually more economically available to other people. Essential oils tend to be, can be kind of pricey. So something to consider about who you're working with. If you use a flower essence versus an herbal tea spritz versus an essential oil, is it something that they're going to be able to replicate in their daily life? And so you kind of want to model what you're doing so that they see you using it. Okay, I can use it that way. This is, what you can do. You may also want to try sending them home with some of it too.
Yeah.
Great. So yarrow, we have a pink variety here. I have been told that the pink variety grows in the European. I'm using Europe as a huge, very overall thing, but I've heard that this is very common wild, and white yarrow here in the United States is very common wild. I have to grow the pink variety here in my garden. So people will say, no, you have to have the white one, and no, you have to have the pink one. And it doesn't matter. To me, yarrow is yarrow. And yarrow is known for protection. It's been used to like ward off things as psychic protection. So pink yarrow here is used as a flower essence for people to take if they're feeling like they need to create a boundary and separation between somebody else's energy or, a group. If they go in a group, they feel like they're taking too much on, they're soaking up other people's energy, and they want to create that separation so they don't feel everything. Pink yarrow is used for that. So I will actually dry this and keep it in my house, and it dries really well. It doesn't it will maintain its shape and its color for a long period of time, years it seems, because I have some in my house that's lasted a long time. So I keep a bundle of this in my house as a way to to create psychic protection, or if there's people in my house that I'm like having a hard time listening to things that they're saying, like I just glance up at this pink yarrow and I'm like, okay, bury your time, do not need to take all this in. So as a practitioner, you may want to consider yarrow if you don't want to pick up some other people's energy, or use it as a spray, or use it. I know people have used it in their sacred smoke bundles as well.
Yeah, I use it in bundles for burning, and also I have I think it must be. I think what I do is I have a spritz that's a mixture of the tincture and the flower essence, which is for protection. That's one that I use. Yeah. I love this plant. It's like one of my allies. Deep, deep love for this plant. Yeah.
Yeah, same here. And it has that beautiful leaf too. That's kind of like that fern. I always use the word fern looking because it's not a solid leaf like this marshmallow is. It's like you can see through it, and it just has this lovely delicateness to it, but yet it's really, really strong energy. And when we look at the physical properties of it as well, and I love looking at what does this plant do to my physical form, and how can I reflect that as what it's going to do to my energetic form as well. But yarrow can stop blood, so bleeding. It's really effective at bleeding. It blows my mind every time I use it on a bad cut. It can stop the bleeding within like 30 seconds, something that's like pouring out, and it reduces the pain of that site, and it increases healing. I almost cut off the tip of my finger a while back. Went to the doctor, emergency situation, like, what is this going to be okay? Do we need stitches? And I came with a poultice on it of just the yarrow leaf, and the pain was so they could touch it and look at it, and within a week the whole thing had this like cleared up. You would have never known. I almost chopped the top of my finger off. And it was just really one poultice that I kept on there for 20 to 30 minutes. So when I look at that like ability to speed up healing, I also think of it as a way to like mend energetic wounds or emotional wounds, and bring that, reducing the pain, reducing inflammation. Like, we don't want to feel this. We want this to mend energetically quickly. So let's get yarrow in here. It's such a lovely plant. It's hardy. You can't like kill this plant if you try it here. So it grows very, very well.
Yeah. Yes, it's amazing plant actually. Yeah. We in fact yesterday we sat with mugwort, but if we hadn't sat with mugwort, we probably would have sat with this one. Yeah. Really big ally in my work. And also I work with it. It's the first plant that I ever did a plant diet with. So I spent it was 48 hours actually, just with this plant, ingesting this plant. That was the only thing I ate, was yarrow infusion. I ate some yarrow leaves. I just sat with the plant for 48 hours to get to know it energetically. And what I found, I don't know if you're going to touch on this, Erin, as well as everything that Erin said, for stagnation, this plant energetically was kind of huge. It was one of those things where something needed to get moving in me, and this yarrow, the time I spent with it, and actually what I did is I had a herbal bath. I think the first day I made a warm yarrow infusion, and I was drinking that infusion warm, and then I think that evening I had a bath with it, with all this yarrow. And maybe I can't remember now whether it was just my feet and my hands or whether it was the whole of my body, but that it was just all about, it was shifting, it really energetically was shifting the stuff that was probably bleeding my energy from from my the stuff that was sucking sort of out of me energetically. So it was really it was one for moving, getting stuff moving, and stimulating, so it got me out of a sort of place of stagnation. So
yeah, I'm so glad you shared that, because it reminds me of something that I say the plant told me this. You know what I mean, Faye? It's like,
yeah, they know what you mean too, don't worry.
Yeah, okay. And so when you look at that leaf, I was really focused on the leaf at this one meditation moment with it, and it was less like, it told me like, we help get things into the nooks and crannies in the smallest little places in your body to help, like you said, move or heal all those little tiny capillaries. So that maybe other herbs can't get into. So I thought, oh, that's great. Adding yarrow to something like a tea that has another effect that you want, that like the yarrow could help get it into all the nooks and crannies that it needs to get into. So yeah, like you said, stagnation or pain in areas that are for like really small nerve endings. That's what I kind of felt with this one. So that's lovely. So those are all my only pictures that I have. Let's see, I feel like there was another herb I wanted to mention here. Well, I think I'll open it to questions right now, and if there's any herbs that I didn't touch on that you want me to mention.
With the yarrow, when you're talking about using it for, say, like smudging, do you use the leaves or do you use the flowers?
I would just take the whole thing and add it to a bundle if you have the whole thing. If not, then I would just add the leaves on the stem. I don't know what you use, Faye.
Yeah, I'd use the whole thing if I had it. Yeah.
And did you make your infusions out of both flowers and?
I did. I used it all. Yeah, and the stem actually. Okay. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, this plant is also known, a very old other name that it has is nosebleed plant, because you can literally like take these leaves, kind of crush them up and put them up in the nose to help with a nosebleed. But also if somebody's having a bad nosebleed, a little tincture, if you can get the leaves up there or put them in a gauze, like a gauze poultice, kind of like up in the nose, that would be another way. We've done that. My 13-year-old actually gave it a try, and it feels weird to do it, but really it's helpful, because how else are you going to get anything up into the nose to help it stop bleeding, but to actually get it up in there.
How did you make the poultice for your finger, can I ask?
One-handed. Let's see, what did I do? I think I had some dried yarrow leaf already powdered and in like a little first aid kit. And so here's the tip of it. The tip that I have for you is, like, I told my husband, like, okay, you got to get this on the wound. Okay. So he like starts sprinkling on like some salt or pepper. I'm like, no, put like a lot on there. And it was dry, and it just, the blood just ran it away. So I was like, okay, so that's not working. But I went out and just got some of the leaves, and I kind of just chopped them up a little bit to break up so you can pull, it gets kind of juicy, kind of watery, and then put it on the affected area. If you don't have fresh, but you have dried, and if you have time to do this, get a little boiling water and add a little boiling water to the dried leaves and let it, soak up a little bit and cool. And then you can add it that way. But you want some water involved in it. When it's dry or when it's fresh, it has a little water involved already. It just helps to move it on into the wound and everything like that. So yeah, those are my tips of dried and fresh and all the things.
Lovely, thank you.
I'm going to share my story about when I cut my finger. I cut my finger with secateurs, so it was really bad, and I was in the field. And I have this, I always faint whenever I cut myself. So I knew that I couldn't do that in the field because Jamie would never find me. So I ran into the kitchen and, I'm thinking obviously yarrow, would be my go-to. And the only thing I could think to do in the kitchen was cayenne pepper because it's, it's a styptic as well. A bit more painful than adding yarrow, but I literally got the whole thing, like the whole thing of cayenne pepper and was like, and then I basically covered it with my hand and I lay on the floor because I thought I'm going to faint any second now. So Jamie came into the kitchen with me kind of going, with all this like cayenne pepper, but it worked. I mean, it did. It stopped the flow of blood, but it was a bit painful. But I wasn't really in a state then, for. I was in an altered state, shall we say? But yeah, that's the other one. Cayenne pepper.
I have noticed yarrow poultices do sting a little bit, like for like 10 seconds, just like really quick, and then it's like no pain. It's just the weirdest thing. But yeah, if it's dried and it's really flowing, yeah, you do have to get it on there or have something hold it in place. Definitely something to hold it in place. And you said something else, and I was gonna find. Yeah, it's kind of wild when it's a hand injury and you're trying to get it on. Oh, I know what I was going to say. It's a really great to make into an herbal oil and into a salve, so that if there is something on the skin that does need to have some healing done to it, it doesn't have to be a fresh wound. If somebody's working on some scar tissue or something, or a painful area, yarrow could be part of the herbal oil.
Okay, I've got my question for you. What's your top 5 herbal oils?
Oh boy, my answers change every time somebody asks me that.
Just off the top of your head.
Yeah, I'm looking at my apothecary here too. Plantain.
Yeah.
Plantain leaf oil. St. John's wort flower oil.
Yarrow. You can add yarrow in.
yarrow. Yeah, that's good too. And cottonwood bud.
We didn't get that here. What does cottonwood bud do?
It's really good for pain, for like rheumatic pain, and for like joint pain. And it smells amazing, and it helps to preserve. It's like a preservative for other oils. So. And they're hard to get to because the trees are huge, and so you can't really harvest it often. But the other one that's can be very similar is St. John's. No, not St. John's. I'm sorry. Solomon seal root. I think you said you have Solomon seal.
Yeah, I do. I've never done that. That's an interesting one. Yeah.
Oh, it's so beneficial to little joints. It's one of the herb stories that I have where I jammed my finger and for weeks it was sore, and I thought, well, maybe I just have arthritis in that thumb for the rest of my life. I don't know. And I used the Solomon seal root oil, and I put it on there, and it was gone. It was like one of those ones that works really fast, right? It seems like a lot of herbs take time to work, but like yarrow and Solomon seal root, I just have experiences of them working instantly, and I never had problems with that thumb joint again. So
what do you use the plantain for?
Plantain leaf is helps with any type of skin irritation, itchiness, rashes, bee stings. It's really helpful to reduce like inflammation and calm the skin. You can drink the tea as well. It's edible in so many ways. And
we were talking about the poultice earlier, Catherine. Do you remember?
Yeah.
It's a real first aid plant, soother, isn't it? And cooling. It's really soothing, cooling, inside and outside, basically, isn't it? All those lovely mucous membranes that just like, just kind of stroking myself as I'm saying.
So what benefit is it energetically? You know, in how would you introduce it in an energetic way, if you know what I mean?
I think you need to answer that yourself, Catherine. I think we need to sit you down. Because otherwise, it's a great question, but otherwise you're going to get Erin's perspective. When actually it's great to hear about these things, isn't it? But we need to go and tune in and meet the plants ourselves, and because you're so there's 4 ladies here, Erin, who are very, very tuned into earth energies and the unseen realms. So Catherine, that's what I'm saying. You go and ask the plant; it's going to tell you.
It's just it will do.
Okay.
And that's interesting. I never, I have my answer here for myself. So, but I like Faye's suggestion of giving it a try. And here in North America, it is not considered native. It's called white man's footprints, because they say that everywhere the white man went, it just followed them, which is kind of fascinating and disgusting in so many ways. But because that's true here. The white man did a lot of damage, but this plantain is really everywhere. It's like normal. It's naturalized, right? It's just even indigenous peoples talk about it and use it now too as part of their first aid. From my experience, I can't speak for all of them, but from my experience, even all sorts of people are using it. But I will say that if you have a bee sting, yarrow and that plantain leaf together, if you can just mash it up as quick as you can in your hand and put it on there, that would be a powerhouse right there to use.
So actually, I've seen that work really instantly, and on myself and on Jamie, because we keep bees, and he went through this period of time in Canada where he got stung so many times on his face. It must have had a problem with his bee suit. And actually, I would chew it up and just put it, and he would just say it felt really cold, like ice cold. And not all the time, but obviously when he was needing it to, it did. It was like this sort of jolt of kind of like someone putting an ice pack on there, which is quite incredible,
Yeah, it's one of those interesting ones where you pick up the leaf and it feels so like hard, like it just feels like there's no moisture in it. But if you just rub that thing for a while, all of a sudden it's like, wow, there's lots of juice and in there. So if you've ever in the moment where you're like, this is not going to help me, just keep rubbing it and it will eventually release. Or chew it, yes, chewing.
That's brilliant. Anything else? Any other questions, ladies?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much for letting me beam into your space today and virtually.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Erin. It was really great. It's lovely to see you. And it's been really lovely addition actually to our. We're here for 6 days, so we're kind of we're immersed. We're So thank you so much.
You're welcome, and have a wonderful time. And remember, sometimes the plants, they don't usually yell. They usually have a quiet voice. Some of them yell, but I bet plantain doesn't seem to yell. It usually, the message is sometimes the messages are so easy and so gentle that you think, oh, well, that's not that, like sometimes I'm waiting for like a lightning bolt of an answer. What's the really cool answer? And sometimes I almost miss it because it's like, oh, That's really easy. Of course. What I've always known that. It feels like you've always known it. You were just reminded of it. So sometimes if you're with those plants and you're like, I'm not getting anything, just quiet a little bit more and get a little bit more still, and it's right there. Trust yourself.
Okay.
Thank you. That is really wonderful.
Very
Wonderful
good.
advice
Thank you,
for
Erin.
us. Yeah, thank you. That's a lovely note to end on. Thank you.
All right.
Enjoy your Sunday.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.